A few weeks ago, a change to Social Security quietly passed the House of Representatives. It is now sitting in the Senate, and almost nobody is talking about it. Genuinely, very few people have even heard that this exists. And I understand why, because on the surface, it looks like one of the most boring and inconsequential pieces of legislation you could possibly imagine. It does not change your benefit amount. It does not raise your taxes. It does not move any eligibility dates. It does not restructure the program in any visible mechanical way. If you read the bill quickly, you might find yourself wondering why anyone bothered to write it at all. But I want to make a case today for why I think this quietly passed bill is actually one of the most important things to watch in the entire Social Security landscape right now. Not because of what it does today, but because of what it is almost certainly setting the stage for tomorrow. The bill is called the Claiming Age Clarity Act, and the only thing it does, I want to be really clear about this because the simplicity of it is kind of the whole point, is rename a few key terms inside the Social Security system. That is it. New labels, same program, same benefit structure, same eligibility rules, just different words on the signs pointing to the same destinations. So if it changes nothing meaningful today, why are we talking about it? Because I genuinely believe that when lawmakers start rewriting the vocabulary of a program this large and this important to this many people, that is not random administrative housekeeping. That is deliberate groundwork, and understanding what that groundwork is being laid for matters enormously if you are anywhere near retirement age or planning your financial future around Social Security. Let me show you exactly what the language changes look like, because when you see them laid out side by side, I think you are going to feel the difference immediately, even if you struggle to articulate why. Right now, the term used for filing at age 62 is early eligibility age. Under this new law, that term goes away and is replaced with minimum monthly benefit age. The term full retirement age, one of the most commonly used and widely understood phrases in the entire Social Security system, would be eliminated and replaced with standard monthly benefit age. And the current concept of delayed retirement credits, meaning the increase in your benefit you earn for every month you wait past full retirement age up to age 70, would disappear as a term, with age 70 simply being referred to as the maximum monthly benefit age. That is the entire bill. 3 terminology swaps, nothing else. But here is where I want you to slow down and actually think about what those words are doing, because language is genuinely powerful, and the specific choices made in these substitutions are not accidental. Consider what the word early does when attached to eligibility age. Early sounds like an option. It sounds like a choice you have access to. It does not carry any inherent negative connotation. If anything, early suggests you are getting something ahead of schedule, which in most contexts feels like a minor win. Now consider what the word minimum does when attached to benefit age. Minimum does not sound like an option. Minimum sounds like a floor. It sounds like a desperation threshold. It sounds like the choice you make when you have run out of better choices. Nobody who has the option to wait happily describes themselves as going for the minimum. It carries a psychological weight that early simply does not. Now, think about full retirement age and what that phrase communicates. Full feels like completion. It feels like you have arrived at the destination the system was built around. You have earned your full benefit. You have done what you were supposed to do. There is satisfaction in that framing. Compare that to standard monthly benefit age. Standard is not aspirational. Standard is not a finish line. Standard is just average. It is the middle of the road. It is the thing you get if you are not particularly disciplined or strategic. It does not make you feel like you have achieved anything. And then look at what happens to delayed retirement credits versus maximum monthly benefit age. Delayed retirement credit sounds like a gamble. Delay has a cost. Credit sounds like something you might or might not collect. There is uncertainty baked into it, a sense that you are deferring something and hoping it pays off. Maximum monthly benefit age, by contrast, sounds like a summit. It sounds like the level that informed, patient, disciplined people reach. It sounds like a goal worth pursuing. When you swap out all 3 of those existing terms for the new ones simultaneously, the psychological landscape of Social Security claiming decisions changes in a very specific direction. Filing at 62 feels worse. Waiting until the old full retirement age feels more mediocre. And waiting all the way to 70 feels smarter and more aspirational. Now ask yourself why a piece of legislation would be written specifically to produce that psychological shift in how millions of Americans think about when to claim their benefits. And I think the answer starts to become pretty clear. The most widely discussed and financially significant proposal for addressing Social Security's long-term funding challenges is increasing the full retirement age, or under this new bill, increasing the standard monthly benefit age. Right now, full retirement age is 67 for anyone born in 1960 or later. That has been the standard for years. But there are multiple serious proposals circulating that would gradually raise that age to 70 over the next couple of decades, meaning that what is currently the maximum you can earn by waiting would eventually become the new normal baseline. And the Congressional Budget Office has looked at this idea carefully. Their analysis found that simply raising the full retirement age to 70 over time would close approximately one-third of Social Security's long-term funding gap. One-third, just from that single change. That is an enormous amount of financial pressure relieved without raising payroll taxes, without cutting benefits in an overtly visible way, and without doing anything that looks like a dramatic restructuring of the program. It just quietly reduces what most people collect over their lifetimes by shifting the reference point for what constitutes a full benefit. Now, I want to be fair here because there is a genuine intellectual argument for this kind of change, even if it is uncomfortable to hear. When Social Security first began paying retirement benefits back in 1940, a 65-year-old man had an average life expectancy of about 76 years. 11 years of benefits at most for the typical male recipient. Today, the average life expectancy for a 65-year-old man is over 84 years. For women, it is closer to 87. We are talking about nearly 2 additional decades of benefit payments compared to what the system was originally designed to support. The program was built around a set of actuarial assumptions that no longer reflect reality. The demographics have changed so significantly over the past 80 years that what looked like a sustainable system then looks increasingly strained now. From a purely mathematical standpoint, the argument that the full retirement age should reflect modern life expectancy rather than mid-20th century life expectancy has real merit, and serious economists across the political spectrum have made it. But I want to be equally honest about the other side of this because the pushback against raising the full retirement age is not just political noise. It is grounded in legitimate concerns about who actually bears the cost of that change. Consider what happens if full retirement age moves to 70 and someone still files at 62 because they genuinely need the income, because their health has declined, because their job disappeared, because they are a caregiver who cannot work full-time, because any number of the real-life circumstances that lead people to file early rather than purely by strategic choice. Right now, filing at 62 instead of 67 means collecting roughly 70% of your full retirement age benefit. That is already a meaningful reduction, but if full retirement age moves to 70, filing at 62 would mean collecting somewhere around 55% of the standard benefit. That is not a small haircut. That is nearly half your expected benefit gone, because you filed 8 years before the new standard age instead of 5 years before the old one. And this is precisely why the language matters so much, because the politicians who will eventually have to vote on raising the full retirement age know they are touching what has long been called the third rail of American politics. Social Security is the most politically sensitive program in the federal government. Any politician perceived as cutting it risks their career. The history of American politics is littered with examples of officials who paid an enormous price for being seen as threatening Social Security. So how do you build public acceptance for a change that is functionally a reduction in lifetime benefits for millions of people? You start by changing how people think about the terms. You make filing early feel like choosing the minimum. You make the current full retirement age feel like just the standard, not the goal. You make waiting until 70 feel like what smart people do. And then, when the proposal to raise the official full retirement age to 70 comes forward, It feels less like a cut and more like an alignment of the formal rules with what the renamed vocabulary already implies. It feels like the system is finally catching up to where the language already pointed. That is the roadmap I see in the Claiming Age Clarity Act, and I want to be clear that I am not saying this is nefarious or that the people who wrote this bill are acting in bad faith. There is a genuine case to be made that Social Security does need meaningful reform to remain solvent for future generations, and that the full retirement age is one of the most effective levers available for achieving that. What I am saying is that this particular piece of legislation is almost certainly not just administrative housekeeping. It is preparing the public psychological terrain for a much bigger conversation that is coming. And people who are in their 50s and 60s today need to understand that conversation is coming for them specifically. Because here is the thing about timing that matters enormously. If you are currently 60 years old, you are looking at a potential claiming window that spans the next 2 to 12 years. The decisions you make about when to claim Social Security are going to be among the most financially significant decisions of your retirement. If the full retirement age moves to 70 during that window, even gradually, the math on your claiming strategy changes substantially. The break-even analysis shifts. The penalty for filing early gets steeper. The reward for waiting gets front-loaded into the framing, but the actual benefit calculation looks different. Understanding that this change is being discussed seriously, that it has the backing of serious fiscal analysis, and that the preliminary groundwork is already being laid in legislation like the Claiming Age Clarity Act, gives you information you need to be thinking about this now rather than being blindsided by it later. There is also a broader context worth understanding, which is that Social Security's long-term funding outlook has been a concern for years, and the window for addressing it without painful choices is getting narrower. The most recent trustee reports have consistently projected that without legislative action, the combined trust funds could face a depletion point sometime in the 2030s, at which point incoming tax revenues would only be sufficient to pay about 75 to 80% of scheduled benefits. That is not a comfortable margin, and it creates real urgency around finding solutions. Raising the full retirement age is not the only option on the table. Raising or eliminating the payroll tax cap, adjusting the benefit formula, means testing benefits for higher income retirees, and various combinations of those approaches are all part of the policy conversation. But the full retirement age adjustment is uniquely attractive to certain lawmakers because it generates significant savings without requiring a tax increase. And the Claiming Age Clarity Act suggests that at least some members of Congress are thinking about it seriously enough to start preparing the language infrastructure for it. The real debate that is coming, and I think it is going to be a significant and contentious one, is not whether the full retirement age should change at all, but how high it should go and how quickly that increase should be phased in. A gradual increase phased in over 20 to 30 years affects people who are currently young in a fundamentally different way than a rapid increase affects people who are already in their late 50s or early 60s and have built their entire retirement financial plan around the current rules. The fairness of the transition period and the protection of people who are too close to retirement to meaningfully adjust their plans is going to be the most contested part of whatever reform package ultimately moves forward. What I want you to take away from all of this is not anxiety, but awareness. The Claiming Age Clarity Act is small. It is a terminology bill, but it is a window into where the larger conversation is heading and how the people driving that conversation are thinking about building public acceptance for changes that would otherwise be very difficult to sell. Words shape how people make decisions. Changing the words around Social Security claiming is not neutral. It is a deliberate choice that will influence how millions of Americans think about when to file. And it is a preview of the larger structural debate that is heading our way faster than most people realize. I genuinely want to know what you think about this. Should the full retirement age be increased? And if so, to what age? And how quickly should that change be phased in? Should it be gradual enough to protect people who are already close to retirement? Or do you think the financial pressures are urgent enough to justify a faster timeline? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every one of them. even the ones that make my kids put down their phones and gather around the screen. This is one of those topics where the conversation in the comments is often as valuable as the video itself, and I am genuinely curious where this community lands on it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.